Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us for PowerFlex's webinar today, Roadmap for Successful C&I Cleantech Projects. I'm Emily Lau, Marketing and Communications Manager at PowerFlex, and the host for today. Our speaker is Reed Gustin, the Director of Software Sales and Business Development for PowerFlex. Reed oversees the customer-facing side of the PowerFlex X software platform, as well as software-only sales opportunities. He joined PowerFlex at the start of 2023 with the primary focus of productizing the PowerFlex X intelligent energy management system and bringing it to the market for a larger audience outside of PowerFlex itself. Reed has held multiple positions in the energy efficiency and EV charging industries and has been focused on deploying EVSE and building sales teams for several years. Reed holds a BS in Business Management from Point Park University. This webinar will be recorded for PowerFlex's proprietary use, and we will make it available to participants afterwards. The presentation will last approximately 30 minutes, leaving 15 at the end for attendee questions. The Q&A function has been enabled for participants to submit questions there throughout the presentation, and Reed will address those during the latter Q&A portion. Thank you, everyone, and without further ado, I will hand it over to Reed.
All right, thanks, Emily, and good day to you all. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to sharing some insights with you. And without holding it up, we'll just get started. So we'll start today by discussing the new energy ecosystem, or the clean energy ecosystem, I should say, and how PowerFlex sees C&I properties evolving in the coming years as they strive to achieve sustainability, net zero, and financial goals. We'll discuss some various challenges that you're all facing today or that you're about to embark on and highlight some very important opportunities that you shall not pass up. We'll briefly touch on all the different ways to reduce costs for these renewable behind-the-meter projects. We'll discuss how to install what you need now while future-proofing your property for what's to come, keeping in mind constraints such as electrical capacity. And we'll take a few minutes at the end to cover a few real customer success stories on how we've used PowerFlex X to drive value through resiliency, sustainability reporting, decreased energy costs, and increased grid service revenue. Finally, we'll take a few minutes at the end looking at a real customer dashboard within our PowerFlex X online portal and open it up for questions. So the grid of the future does not look like the grid of the past or even the grid of today. For 20 plus years, loads have been flat and utilities have been looking for ways to sell more power to their customers. Now, with the electrification of everything, including the elephant in the room, transportation, things seem chaotic. Everyone's wondering how we're going to account for all of this new load. And historically, we've had traditional forms of power generation, right? Coal, nuclear, and hydro. And as it shows, the grid was very much one directional. You can see there's some form of power generation likely out in a field, several miles away from cities and towns. And we use transmission lines and substations to deliver that electricity to businesses and homes. Now, as GHG emissions are contributing to global warming and electricity costs from local utilities are soaring, distributed energy resources, or DERs as I'll refer to them, such as solar and battery storage, have become viable instruments to both lower emissions and energy costs. Since both CapEx and OpEx costs have gone down for DER systems in recent years, when tied with incentives that they are now being installed at utility scale as well as behind the meter in both C&I and residential applications. Historically, the grid was one directional. Now with all of this additional energy being generated and stored at the edge, the grid becomes bidirectional. And when adding EV charging to the scenario, things start to get very complex. For example, trying to control energy costs when there are time of use rates for EV charging, or shifting load to maintain lower demand charges on a property when all of the employees show up in the morning to charge at the same time the AC units are kicking on. So this C&I market, where DERs are behind the meter, this is where PowerFlex specifically plays. And as we look into the future, we can see that things get even more complex when the EV charging becomes bidirectional. This is a complete bidirectional ecosystem where electrons can be shifted from wherever there's an excess to where there's demand, right? So in this future state, there's so many opportunities for economic optimization, but you have to know what you're doing and be able to make decisions in real time at the edge. So at PowerFlex, we see this complexity as the game that we play with PowerFlex X, and we're very good at it. when we play the game and control the players, and the players being solar, battery storage, EV chargers, everyone wins. The customer wins, the utility or the grid wins, and Mother Nature wins. For PowerFlex, not only is the C&I space where we play, but it's where we thrive. And we've been doing it for 20 plus years. So over that time, we've installed over 10,000 EV chargers, over 360 megawatts of commercial solar, mostly rooftop, and over 46 megawatts of commercial energy storage. All of these assets are being monitored by and operated on PowerFlex X. So for those of you who don't know, PowerFlex X is our intelligent energy management platform that was specifically created to monitor, control, and co-optimize on-site renewables, along with building load and large-scale EV charging load. So PowerFlex is known for providing this full turnkey and integrated solutions, from project feasibility and analysis to design, installation, asset management, and O&M. We do it all. And PowerFlex X is the glue that holds PowerFlex's entire offering together. So throughout the whole customer lifecycle. Through PowerFlex X, we're able to deliver 3 promises to every customer, ultimately enabling PowerFlex to engage with our customers and guide them through this clean tech journey. The first promise is that using what we know about a site, so utility tariffs, available grants and incentives, roof size, helioscopes, we're talking about EV charging, maybe employee or fleet vehicle count, or expected utilization rates. So we take all this information into the PowerFlex X valuation and forecasting tool. Internally, we refer to it as Exact. And this enables PowerFlex sales team to design and forecast the most optimal site or the most optimal system for a given property. Once the installation is complete and assets are installed, PowerFlex X will then connect to all of the assets with our Nexus on-site controller, which then connects up to our EMS in the cloud to forecast, control, and co-optimize the operations of all of the assets using the same algorithms and models that are used in the valuation and forecasting stage. The third promise is that PowerFlex X online portal access helps our customers understand their investment. It will give them the ability to navigate the complexities of those investments on their properties, and defend the explanations for what's happening using a clear and easy to use interface. So these 3 things are something that every customer should expect when working with PowerFlex, and they're delivered because of PowerFlex X. I think the most important thing to note here is that by using the same optimization engine to simulate, forecast, and operate, we achieve the highest level of alignment between our what-if scenario planning and the as-operated environment. All right, so now let's discuss some challenges and opportunities that you'll face as you go on this journey. So, and this is where we help C&I customers really take advantage of the opportunity in front of them. To start off, we've got upfront challenges, or the upfront challenges are really the business challenges that you experience. You have soaring costs, you have emissions reductions requirements to reduce scope 1 through 3 emissions, and lots of pressure from tenants and customers and investors to be green. And then there's technical challenges, right? Let's say you have unlimited money in the world and you know what you want to do, you still have more technical and internal issues that arrive. So perhaps you're lacking in-house expertise, or there are infrastructure limitations that are uncovered during the project due diligence phase. Right? Then you've got all of these ongoing costs with O&M and reporting requirements to consider. So the combination of PowerFlex X intelligent energy management software paired with PowerFlex's full turnkey approach and capabilities really allows us to handle all of the challenges that will get thrown at you while you continue business operations and have peace of mind that PowerFlex is taking care of you. Our goal is to deliver a system that meets your needs today while future-proofing your property for your energy needs of tomorrow. Opportunities. So the real opportunity for any entity willing to take on this challenge is summarized here, right? One of the most obvious opportunities is lower energy bills. You would and should expect that with all the advancement in DER technologies, the energy bills will be lower because you're offsetting expensive electric utility costs with clean green electricity that's generated on your property behind the meter. The opportunity with cost savings is compounded when you can integrate and co-optimize multiple asset types together. With PowerFlex X EMS providing this co-optimization functionality to its users, a multi-asset integrated behind the meter system should be the future state in which facility owners wish to be operating. You also unlock additional income sources. This may not be as obvious, but you can sell energy back to the grid or sell energy through charging driver fees at EV chargers on your site. And with these green amenities, you can also charge higher rents, or in general, you'll have a higher property value. And through having green property, you'll be seen as a more attractive partner or supplier. At the end of the day, happy tenants result in lower churn results in higher net operating income. So if all of this is sounding good to you, you're probably wondering, where do I start, right? This all seems complex. Sounds like you need an expert to successfully develop and energize one of these systems, and you're right. There is a lot to think about, and it is complex. Though you want to be thinking ahead and planning for the future clean tech ecosystem to be adopted onto your property, you don't need to take on the whole thing at once. In fact, many PowerFlex customers start with solar first, or start with installing EV chargers for their customers or employees first. As their energy needs change over time, PowerFlex will add to the system, like adding on-site commercial battery storage to help control new peak loads that are coming from EV charging, just as an example. What you see here is an example of adaptive load management, or ALM, at work. Adaptive load management is the secret sauce behind our EV charge management software that dynamically changes or optimizes the amount of power that's going into an EV based on available power, load constraints, driver requirements, and other vehicles charging at the same time. In this example, with a power limit of 12 kW, we're still able to charge 5 vehicles at the same time, providing as low as 1 kilowatt through any given charger at any given time. By providing 2 pieces of information, or by collecting 2 pieces of information from the driver, dwell time and energy required, we ensure that every vehicle is at the required state of charge by the time it needs to leave. Now, let's say you don't have a large EV charging demand on your property today. Totally understandable, as different parts of the country are at different points in the EV adoption curve. What I'll say is get ready. EV revolution is coming, and if it's not on your doorstep yet, it will be soon. That said, you're still experiencing soaring energy costs from the local electric utility, right? Across the country, utility electricity customers have noticed increases anywhere from 10 to 50% in their energy costs in the recent years, and those costs are expected to continue rising. As you tackle the issue of soaring utility costs by installing a behind-the-meter solar system on your property, likely on your roof, if you're lucky, your roof will be large enough to install enough solar panels to meet your facility consumption and still have room to grow. You can see in the image, when comparing the orange solar production curve to the green facility load curve, that we're able to generate more electricity during the middle of the day than the facility is actually consuming. So in the blue section, you can see the excess solar power compared to the facility load. And as a standalone system, this excess electricity may be able to be sent back to the utility grid through some sort of net metering arrangement, such as NEM 2.0 or 3.0 in California. And some properties have an interest in peak shaving or energy arbitrage. And for these customers, they may begin their clean tech journey by installing a battery storage system. You can see in the image that the battery state of charge is increasing throughout the day. Essentially, the battery is filling up with electrons that are cheap during off-peak hours. And then you see the gray section. This represents peak pricing from the utility, where electrons drawn from the grid are almost 3 times as expensive. So during this time, the gray period, peak pricing period, the battery is discharged, limiting the amount of energy being drawn from the grid. This peak shaving strategy can save a property tons of money. Now let's look at the long-term view, because the first project isn't going to be the last. When working with PowerFlex, we look ahead and plan to operate multiple clean energy assets as one unified system. This is only possible with PowerFlex X. And when you have an integrated behind the meter system, you can see amazing results. You can achieve higher savings, higher revenues, and overall better optimization. What you see happening here is a combination of EV charging, battery storage, and solar all being monitored and operated within PowerFlex X, where we're also monitoring facility load and optimizing the whole system to achieve specific goals. We've oversized the solar array to produce excess energy during the day beyond what's consumed by the facility. This excess energy is used to power EV chargers and also fill up the battery so that it can be discharged at 4 p.m. daily, which is when that peak pricing from the utility kicks in. And by understanding the overall facility capacity constraints and monitoring the facility load, the PowerFlex X platform is also able to manage large EV charging installation. And so here we're able to charge over 60 vehicles at the same time while maintaining those load limits across the whole system. Though this may seem a bit confusing, this holistic view is the end goal for many of our PowerFlex customers. And I hope that you can see the benefits of co-optimization rather than operating each of these assets individually without regard for the needs of the other assets. At the end of the presentation, I will unpack these layers and show you how this is happening in real time. So provide a bit more clarity there. Okay, so planning your project, right? So with the right team by your side and proper planning, strategic execution of these complex projects becomes a reality. So let's explore some ways to reduce our overall CapEx and OpEx costs. On the CapEx side, there are many avenues to explore reducing implementation costs for your Cleantech project. I'll highlight a few now and cover a few more cover them more in the following slides. It's very important. First off, to explore all of the different federal, state, and local grants, subsidies, and rebates that are available. These various incentives should lower your overall project implementation costs anywhere from 30 to 90%. I've even seen in some multifamily properties in disadvantaged community zones be eligible for 100% of their costs to be covered by rebates. So be sure to do your research to see what your property may be eligible for. I'll also note the IRA passing in August of 2022 unleashed a plethora of tax incentives for clean tech projects, meant to further incentivize businesses to take action. Additional measures can be taken to reduce implementation costs, especially if the system will be expanded upon in the future. Future-proofing your site, such as adding additional conduit and stub outs for future EV charging at the time that construction crews are doing their first installs, will lower your installation costs for between 30 and 60%. And using technology to work around infrastructure limitations will become more and more important to controlling costs, especially as more EVSEs or EV chargers are being installed per location. And I'll cover more on this in just a minute. There are also multiple ways to reduce OpEx or operating costs for behind the meter DER system. You can do things such as collect driver fees at EV chargers instead of offering them as amenity. Depending on local and state policy regulations, you may be able to sell excess energy back to the grid through feed-in tariffs or a net metering arrangement. And you can also measure how much clean energy is being produced and GHG emissions are being avoided via your Cleantech system, and then verify, collect, and sell renewable energy certificates or RECs and carbon credits. So these are all benefits that can be realized on top of the initial energy cost savings. As I mentioned, the IRA passed in August of 2022. This was a major piece of legislation that established investment tax credits or ITCs for installing EV chargers, solar, and battery energy storage on your property. I won't be spending time on this topic, but if you want to learn more details about the IRA and other federal or state-specific incentives, please refer to our webinar, The Carrot and Stick Approach to Policy, Incentives and Mandates Driving Clean Energy Growth. There's a link at the bottom of this slide to the full webinar that was put on by the PowerFlex Policy and Incentives team. Being forward-thinking is going to be the most important piece to this whole puzzle. You want to build to meet your needs today, but plan ahead and future-proof your property to be ready for your needs of tomorrow and in the future. Right? The whole goal here is to reduce long-term costs and then maximize long-term revenues and savings. Again, PowerFlex X helps us take the property owners on this journey. We start by assessing your site and considering the future clean energy ecosystem on your property. Remember the first promise from PowerFlex X. During planning and construction, PowerFlex value engineers the system to be ready for growth and evolution. And once it's time to install more clean energy assets to meet your future needs, you experience reduced installation costs, reduced operation costs, zero integration costs, and the most operationally effective clean tech system, all being operated on one platform, PowerFlex X. Now, I'd like to discuss how we can use technology to work around site constraints. One of the most common obstacles that we come across as an installer of large EV charging stations is electrical capacity constraints. By utilizing PowerFlex X adaptive load management, or ALM, PowerFlex is able to install up to four times the amount of EV chargers without needing a utility service upgrade. We're able to do this because every customer gets that on-site controller, which contains our EMS, and the algorithms that power ALM live in the computer at the edge. So because of the National Electric Code and 625.42, we're able to set and manage limits via the software inside our on-site controller. And this allows PowerFlex to oversubscribe electrical panels without any risk or harm to the facility or the grid. And by overcoming this obstacle, PowerFlex X enables PowerFlex to avoid long timelines and expensive costs that come along with utility service upgrades. And this is just a great example of how we can use the technology to overcome site constraints. Okay, now I'd like to take a few minutes to review some real customer success stories. I've anonymized the following slides, so I want to give you an idea of all of the customers, the variety of customers who PowerFlex serves today. We've provided our full suite of solutions to corporate, nonprofit, profit, and government entities across the country. So I'll give you a look here. Okay, so first we have one of our EV charging only customers in Southern California. At this site, we installed over 240 level 2 chargers and 10 DC fast chargers, all without needing a new service upgrade from the utility. We were able to achieve this because of adaptive load management capabilities that we just discussed. And due to the fact that we did not need an upgrade, the customer was able to shave over 12 months off the project timeline and avoided over $200,000 in service upgrade fees from the utility. Next, we'll look at one of our solar plus battery storage customers. By using the power of the sun to capture energy and both consume it on site and store it in the battery for later consumption, this customer is able to realize over $150,000 in annual savings and is offsetting 750,000 pounds of carbon annually. Finally, I'll highlight this third trifecta site. Trifecta meaning they have EV charging, battery storage, and solar. This customer has been able to fully take advantage of PowerFlex X and the integration and co-optimization of these assets. Through the co-optimization of the assets, we're able to deploy multiple energy optimization strategies simultaneously. And we've been able to achieve almost $500,000 in annual energy savings while also increasing the load at this site with over 61 chargers. Now, before I open up for questions, I'm actually going to take a minute and step out of the presentation. We'll look at the same site and our online dashboard to give you an idea of how we're operating these things in real time. So this is our online dashboard access. This is where our customers, their asset management companies, sustainability managers, a variety of different roles will come into this for a variety of reasons. But I want to take a minute and just again show how we're co-optimizing multiple assets on this one property. What we see here is a 7-day look back of the assets on this site. And what I'll do is actually just zoom into one specific site and hover over a few things here. We can see the facility load at this property and then the solar production. So let me uncheck here. So you can see that the solar production curve, we're generating more power than the facility is consuming. We also have a battery on this site, and we can see that the battery state of charge is increasing throughout the day as we're generating excess energy from the solar. And then again, this grayed out period is the peak pricing period from the utility. And so we've deployed a peak shaving algorithm to reduce the amount of overall load being pulled from the facility during that time. And so if we look at the net load, we can see that during most of the day, we're negative. And during this grayed out period, we're not pulling from the utility at all. And then also just adding in the EV load here, what I'd like to note is that there's 61 level 2 chargers. About half of them get plugged in every day. And what you don't see is a large spike in load at the beginning and then it tailing off over the next hour or two. But we actually have a fairly steady load curve charging the vehicles throughout the day. And that's just highlighting adaptive load management at work. Also like to point out our real-time power flow. So this is a site in San Diego. This is how these assets are operating right now in real time. So the facility is consuming almost 300 kilowatts, and we're not yet generating that much from the solar. So we're pulling from the grid. We're currently filling the battery so that it can discharge starting at 4 p.m. And we're also serving the need of the EV drivers on site. So that this just wanted to show is it'd be a good representation of how we're operating the trifecta system here. So at this point, I will conclude the presentation and open it up for questions.
Thank you so much, Reed. And for those of you who are on with us, feel free to keep on submitting questions and we'll try to get it to as many as possible in the allotted time. I'm going to start off with the first question. Can PowerFlex X integrate with other software such as telematics platforms for fleets?
Great question. Yes. So PowerFlex, so we have integrated actually with 2 different telematics platforms for fleets. We've integrated with Geotab and Samsara, which are 2 of the, I guess they own the most market share in the fleet telematics space. PowerFlex also has a public API. The documentation for our API can be seen at docs.powerflex.io. And we have several customers that are using our API to pull operational data from our system. Instead of having to log into the Access environment, they're using the API to pull that operational data into their own ERP systems to look at in their own ways. So yes, we have the ability to integrate, and we're doing it today.
Thanks. Next question. For other users or external stakeholders, can you export reports of production, energy billing, et cetera, all that stuff that we saw on the platform?
Yeah, actually, I will. Since I'm still sharing my screen, let me jump into Access. So this dashboard was built to be very intuitive, and reporting is super easy and accessible. So from this page, we can go to the reporting tab. We can also, and which provides all of our standard EV charging metrics. To download it, simply click the download data button. All of the operational data can be downloaded in CSV or PDF, and we can pull site-wide EV reporting, station-specific reporting, all of the sessions details over charging sessions over a period of time. We've also got interval data that can be pulled for EV, solar, or storage. So very intuitive, very easily accessible straight from the online dashboard. Or again, we can set up some automated reports to be delivered as well.
Great. Next question. Does PowerFlex handle the tracking of incentives? And does it help with PowerFlex X?
So PowerFlex, the incentives are not inside of PowerFlex X. We do have a whole policy and incentives team that is focused on identifying and understanding and basically onboarding all of the different incentive programs in the geographies where we're operating. Our team handles the incentive process for our customers, from the initial rebate application to all of the administration and like reporting and follow up on the back end. So though it's not built into the software, PowerFlex does have a full team and it's part of the service that we offer.
Thank you. Next question. If we have EVSE at multiple locations, can we manage our portfolio together in PowerFlex X?
Another great question. I will jump back in and show how this looks within Access. Yes, you can do that. Go here. So this is an example of a portfolio where we can see three different sites, all of which have EV chargers. So from this portfolio level view, we can see the total of what's happening across that site or multiple sites from one view. And we've got different access and permissions that we can set up as well. So you may have a more senior person that's viewing and responsible for viewing sites at a portfolio level, and then a local operations manager who's responsible for the more local operations. So we can set it up any way that you need, but we can absolutely, we have customers with portfolios, multiple sites spanning across the country.
Great. Next question. Can you add existing Cleantech assets into the PowerFlex X platform?
Yes. Well, great question. I guess the short answer is it depends. If we're talking about EV chargers, we have lots of customers, going back to portfolio customers, we have customers with a portfolio of EV chargers that are existing and they're looking to use PowerFlex X and PowerFlex capabilities to upgrade and add more chargers to their sites. It really depends on the existing hardware that's installed. If we're talking about chargers, there needs to be OCPP. We need to be able to communicate with those chargers and operate them. There's many instances where our recommendation is to upgrade the chargers, depending on, again, how old those chargers are, what brand they are, and so on. Talking about solar and monitoring existing solar systems, again, it depends on the hardware that's being used to operate those systems. And the same thing with battery storage. We typically don't operate batteries that we don't install, right? But there's always opportunities. This is an exciting and changing ecosystem. So
great. Next question, can you co-optimize multiple technologies to reduce demand during peak time of use rates? I think you did show us a bit of that.
Yeah. So we've got multiple energy optimization strategies as part of our overall EMS. And so some of those are specific to EV charging. Some of those are specific to how we operate batteries with demand response programs. But the one that I had mentioned was our peak shaving algorithm. So with using that the peak shaving energy optimization strategy, we're able to say, let's say from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m., we don't want to charge any electric vehicles because the cost of electricity is higher. So we could optimize the charging sessions to be done by 4 p.m. And when a car plugs in during that time, the session could not start until that peak pricing period is over. Similarly, if you have a need to charge those vehicles and you can't wait, but you also have a battery storage system on site, we can utilize the energy in the battery storage system to, again, optimize everything and not draw from the grid during that time. So co-optimization is what we specialize in.
Yes. And next question, how often would you expect a customer to look into the PowerFlex X platform? On average, a day, a week? What sort of support is available from PowerFlex if we see something on the dashboard that confuses or concerns us?
Yeah, great question. So PowerFlex has our support services team, our asset management and customer support team, who's always available to take questions from our customers. We do have business hours, and depending on the level of support tier, we have an enterprise level of support that gives like 24/7 access to our customer success team, or our commercial levels of support, where you always have available answers during business hours. What we've noticed from customers once sites go live is that for the first week, they probably log into access once a day or a couple times a day, and then a month may go by, and then they're only logging in once a month, and then eventually, once our customers gain trust in our system and an understanding of how everything's operating, then it's more like annually once it's time to download your sustainability reports, unless it's more of a fleet operation where you've got someone who needs to, where reliability for the EV chargers is key, and like someone's always on site and monitoring alerts. So it really depends on the use case and the mix of assets that you have on site. And outside of our customers, asset management companies, the O&M companies that are monitoring these systems are the ones who really log in more often to make sure that the systems are actually operating the way that we had forecasted them.
Great, and just want to make sure we hit the second part of that question. It was kind of like a two-parter, which is like, what kind of support is available from the PowerFlex team if an issue or an alert comes up on the dashboard?
Yep. So we get alerts again. So the PowerFlex team is always monitoring for alerts, and then depending on the SLAs that are set up, those alerts may be sent to an external O&M company, or if PowerFlex is handling O&M on that site, then we'll take that alert and follow the protocols to make sure that it's either handled remotely within a certain time period, or the technicians are called to go out on site within a certain time period.
Great. We have another question. Can PowerFlex X and ALM be used to decrease the size of electric service provided to a facility?
So it's not used to decrease the size of a service, but it's used to avoid the need for an upgraded service, right? So ALM is intuitive because we're able to connect, because we take our on-site controller and we connect to the facility and we're monitoring the facility load. And we also do the load study before any EV chargers are installed. We know what the electrical capacity is. We know what the overall capacity is for a site. And based on the driver needs, how long those vehicles are parked, how much power they need, and then what's happening on site, when we're monitoring the load, we in real time are constantly changing and adjusting charging schedules to make sure we don't go beyond that specific limit or that specific threshold on the site. But if, for example, if we've got the facility load drops for some reason and there's a bunch of cars that are plugged in charging, there's some more power that's available, the optimization strategy will be adjusted, thus giving more power to the vehicles. So again, it's not reducing the capacity or reducing the size of a load on a property, but it's avoiding going beyond that load limit.
Great. And then another question is asking about some of the examples. So the cases that you showed us seem to be a typical office building that operates between like 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. and it gives time for batteries to recharge. This question is asking about for those who might be like continuous manufacturing operations that are like 24/7 a day, how might the platform treat those type of cases?
That's a great question. I think that the best thing for you to do would be to have us get connected with us after this webinar, and we'll do an analysis of your property and provide, basically option 1, option 2, option 3. Here's what we can do. Here's the the flow or order of operations in which we think would be best for you, and here's how we forecast that system to be working. It's a great question. It's really dependent on your property and where in the country you are. There's so many different things to think about. Again, which is why it's complex, which is why you should reach out to us. And actually, I'll just say I'll be like following up with most of you over the next couple of days. I'll be calling if you get a phone number, call from a 412 phone number. That's me. So please don't ignore me. And I'm happy to answer all of your questions.
Thank you, Reed. I think that brings us to the conclusion of our webinar today. I know that there are some additional questions, so please feel free, I guess, Reed, if you want to scroll to the last slide with your contact information, feel free to jot down Reed's contact information and get in touch with him. As he mentioned, he will also maybe be in touch with you, so get ready for that call. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a webinar pretty much monthly talking about different subjects. Next month is going to be one on transportation and logistics, and specifically EVSE for those type of companies or locations. So if you're interested, please join us. We'll be starting to open registrations for that soon. Thank you again for joining us today, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.